Yetzei. If he comes in with his gapo, meaning only with his garment, he leaves with his garment. In Bali Shahu, what about if he's a married man? He's a man who has a wife. Yotzi Ishtu Imo. So when after 6 years, he's freed. His wife goes out with him. So Rashi asked the obvious question: if a man is sold into slavery because he stole to pay restitution to the one he had victimized, why should the wife? The wife has no relevance to it. So what does it mean? Yotzi Ishtu Imo. Rashi. He was by himself. Means with the corner of his garment. Came just with the shirt on his back, so to say. Is very important. The only time the master could impose on the slave to breed on his behalf, that's only if he has a wife. What's the reason? Because if he has no wife, we're concerned. He'll say after 6 years, he has a wife, so it's more likely he's going to go out. He was not going to want to remain there. He has a wife, he has a family. But if he doesn't, therefore he cannot impose it. Some Rishon it's also. He's not permitted. In Balisho, Yisraelis, so Rashi asked the obvious question, which is the Gemara asks. She goes with him. She never entered to be a slave. There's no such thing, first as an adult, slave by a woman. The only slave you have by a woman is an Amivrio. She sold as a minor by the father. That if a person who purchases Eved Ivri, he has to support not only the slave, to feed the slave, he has to feed his wife and his family, his children. So Yotzi Shtimo. So when the servitude is up after 6 years, as he goes out, all financial obligations to the family cease to be. The master no longer has those obligations.
So the master has to pay
all expenses, all expenses.
Even though this man stole from him.
Doesn't make a difference. But he has to pay. He has to underwrite the family. You know, the Gemara says in Kedushin that Kona Eved Latzmo, Kona Od Latzmo. A person who purchases a Jewish slave, you buy a master. Why? Because the Gemara says, it says he should be with him. Meaning, if he only has, let's see, one quality piece of bread, he has to give it to the Jewish slave. He doesn't take it first. He has one bed, one pillow. Quality versus inferior, the slave takes priority. Here we're saying he's a married man. Not only does he have to feed him, support the slave, he has to support his wife and children. So who are you working for? I mean, the master is working for the slave. The slave is not really working for the master. So therefore, it says it's equivalent of purchasing a master for yourself. But it's interesting. Factually, I mean, it's really a discouragement. I mean, the whole idea, why do you put the whole through his ear with the all? Because at Sinai we said, Avodehem. Hashem says, you're my subjects. You shouldn't be a subject of a subject. So even when factually he doesn't have the means to repay the theft. But even in the worst scenario, what happens if they can't find a buyer? The court tries to find a buyer to buy him. Nobody's interested in buying him. So what happens? It remains a debt. You don't sell the man. You only sell the man if you find a buyer and the value is the equivalent. What happens if the Gemara says in Kedushin? You could sell him, but it only covers 3/4 of the debt, 99% of the debt. Then how long you don't sell him? It has to be the exact amount of money, and you can only sell him once. You can't sell him twice for the same theft. So what the Torah is creating a situation, it's nearly impossible to sell him. First, you'll never get the number, and even if you do, nobody's going to buy him because you're creating a financial burn for yourself. But what is because the Torah is, because factually it's avodaim. A Jew is not supposed to be a subject of another subject.
Also, the Ivri, he's wanting to be good, right? I mean, the master's paying all his bills.
Got it. What do you ask me? He has to work. He has to work every moment of the day.
Of course he has to work.
So,
But no, but it's a disincentive for him to want to be free. What was the concept of him getting pierced? After 6 years,
you want to be a slave.
I got it good. Otherwise, I got to look for a job.
It's like, it's the guy joins the army when he's 16 and he doesn't leave till they put him to Arlington Cemetery. That's when he leaves. Okay, phenomenal. You don't have a worry in a care in the world. Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Rosh said that a Jew should not be a slave of another Jew?
Of any human being. Any human being.
So then why do we have the other...
Because of the circumstance. Because of the
So why
circumstance.
not create some other kind of situation?
The Torah says, look, how are you going to compensate? Otherwise, it's just a debt. I borrow money from you, and I'm not able to pay back. So what? You garnish my wages, whatever, in the future. You don't sell, but for stealing, if you cannot compensate the victim, you sold into slavery. That's how you pay the debt. I understand that. Good, so it remains a debt. Remains a debt. It's no worse than borrowing the money and I have to pay a debt.
Was there a concept of a debtor's prison or?
No. Okay. If the master should give him a wife, and she bears children, sons or daughters for him, the woman and her children belong to the master, should be for the master, it's his chattels. From here, the Gemara says a slave does not have chayus, does not have yichus. No constant pedigree, has no relevance to a Canaanite slave. So she's a Canaanite woman. It's like a person is able to breed children from an animal. Right? There's no question. So the wife is what? Has no pedigree. It's a Jew has relations, God forbid, fathers a child from a non-Jew. The child has no relevance to the father. But here it's even more than that. But the non-Jew is a person. It's the child of the non-Jew. Here, because the woman, the slave woman, belongs to the master, she's his chattel, so who owns the children? As he owns her, he owns the children. This is the Shifcha Kananis. Even though the man was permitted, in this context he's permitted, doesn't make a difference. But factually, because she has no identity, therefore the children identify with her, and who is she? She's the chattel of the master. 1 second. And after, when the years are up, he leaves with his garment. Go ahead. But he has a wife. We're talking about the coin we had before. He has a wife. He doesn't have a wife. This question, it's also, you're not permitted to give him. There'll be a discussion, he won't want to leave. Right? Or according to Rashi, Balkorcho, he can't impose it on him. If he has a wife, the master can impose it on the slave. Without a wife, he cannot impose it. The man says, I'm not interested. And he has a right to turn it down, the way Rashi learns.
So, after a man is married, has his own family, and then he's taking his man to be free. The wife and his natural wife and his natural children come with him, or they're on the outside?
No, they're on the outside, but the master has to provide all financial for the family.
So at the same time, even though he's married, he's allowed to have
A man could have multiple wives, right? So there's no worse than that. Except here, there's normally provision. He has permit to be with such a woman. But because he's a slave, he stole. The Torah says, you've sunk to this level, you'll become a breeder. That's the famous Rabbeinu Bachir. That's what's called Eved Ivri. Ivri. You know.
Again, it's another deterrent for not wanting to leave. So after 6 years, he has this relationship with this.
Sure, he'll be stuck there.
Otherwise, maybe he prefers them over. It's another.
But the likelihood is, if he has a wife, it's more likely he'll want to get out. But if he has no wife, and he gets involved in this kind of relationship, plus his financial needs are covered by the master, he's not leaving so quickly.
Didn't we say that he can out? They don't. When you say single, if someone comes in not married to your slave,
your situation.
They don't.
They can't, according to Rashi, they can't force.
Correct.
Right. Correct. Okay, they can't force the slave on them because the man's not leaving so quick. V'im yomar Oma Yomar Evid or Hafti Sadoni, if the slave what I'm referring to him as Oma Yomar Evid Ivri or Evid. If he's an Ivri, say, something, a Jew doesn't speak this way. Im Oma Yomar or Evid, if the Evid should say, or Hafti Sadoni, Esishti is Bonai. Is Bonai. Master is his master. Is it his wife? It's not his wife and it's not his kids. Right? There's no attachment between the two of them, otherwise only the physical attachment. The children don't identify with him. But nevertheless, in his mind, this is my wife, and this is what? These are my children. Right? He says, Ohafti, lo eitzi chovshi. I'm not leaving. I'm not going out free. Rashi says, Ishti hashivcha. Although she's a shifta, she's a slave, this is my wife. Because it's not so easy to say this. It's Oma Yomar. If he should say such a thing, it's like almost unheard of. If he should say such a thing. V'yishu adonav Elohim, the master takes him to the bezdin. V'yishu al adeles o al mezuzah, takes him to the door and to the doorpost. Rotza adonav es osno b'bartzeah, and the master puts a hole with an awl through his ear, v'avodah l'olam, and he's a slave forever.
Does the master acquire him, even though he says, I want to be here? Is he free to take it? Or can you say, no, I don't want him?
I mean, let's say the master says, I had enough of the man. Let's
Yeah.
say the case, it's just plain trouble.
Yeah, what happened?
The Gemara says there was a slave, Doru. His name was Doru. Slave. So it's like Calhoun, Doru. So, he used to have such, all in the janitors, the yeshivas, those were the names, Calhoun. In England, I don't know what they call them. So the Gemara says, Doru, his name was Doru. He used to hang out in the beer halls. He used to dance. So the Gemara says, Doru was l'shava namid kreisei. He wasn't worth the bread that his stomach consumed. You understand? That's not much productivity. See, he was a curse to the master. So after 6 years, he says, I want to stay. I'll buy you a ticket to the next drop off. There's no question. I mean, he could turn him down.
You can turn him
Definitely could turn him down. What happens if the master, after 3 years, the man has had enough of him? He can send him out before, right? He has to financially. He has to work out the financial situation with him, right? But he can't force him. I want to live in your house. Here's the money. Go wherever you want to go. I've had enough. Yeah.
If the man stole from several different people.
Each one's a separate theft.
So
Separate theft.
Separate theft.
So, right. Okay, let's do the moral.